Hey there, so today we have another beer talk, and the question today is whether craft beer is getting too macro-like. So first off, we're going to talk about a trend that's happening in craft beer. We're going to talk about an article that Sam Calagione has mentioned in talking about the fight between macro and craft beer, and then generally just my opinion about this. So first off, there's clearly a trend going on with large regional craft breweries putting out a simple lager. Earlier on, craft breweries would try to introduce people into craft beer with something like a blonde ale, a wheat beer, maybe a German-style Pilsner, leaning towards a little bit more German brewing tradition. But now we're just simply putting out lager, and that's leaning quite towards the flavor profile of macro beer, Bud Miller Coors. Sam Calagione, I'll post the article in the description below, but he recently was talking about how he doesn't want to cheapen his philosophy of beer and craft beer in general. He keeps his beer at a decent price point, at a premium price point, because that's what his product is. It is a premium product, and he's going to charge that instead of moving down the hill towards something like a $15 15-pack. And also, he's not putting out a simple lager. His philosophy of brewing is doing some fun and crazy crafty things, and in his mixed large pack is something like a black lime goza. That's how he's going to drag you in, not putting out something like a pale lager like this. So now the question becomes whether craft breweries are really feeding into what the macro breweries want. So what the macro breweries want with buying some of these craft breweries is they want to drop the price of craft beer. Because when you drop the price of a craft beer six-pack from $12, $13, $14 down to $8, $7, which is something crazy like that, now you're really growing the worth of a brand like something like Budweiser. And that's what AB InBev wants. AB InBev does not want a huge divide in something like a $12 to $16 six-pack of craft beer and then Budweiser being perceived as a cheap, lower quality product. Instead, they want to keep that real nice and close so that the brand of Budweiser really holds on to and retains its value. So now you have all these craft breweries putting out beer that's sort of similar to macro beer and then trying to price it towards macro beer, and maybe you're just playing into the hands of what the macro breweries really want. So that could be an issue. And then also, the other issue is just the idea of flavor. For the longest time, America, after Prohibition and World War II, and our palates were completely ruined by how factory-produced our food and beverages were. Things just didn't taste good. They were not local. They were just very highly processed goods, and that's what happened to beer as well. Beer was being produced by only a handful or very, very few breweries for decades and decades in the mid-1900s. Finally, we had a craft beer movement finally explode, and now we're at a point where we're over 6,000 craft breweries in the country, and that took a long time to get to versus what happened from the turn of the century, from the late 1800s. So, with the craft beer explosion, we've obviously gained so much in technique, styles, and flavors, and fun things that you could do with beer, and then now are we just going back to what we had 50 years ago, which was a handful of just piss yellow looking beers that didn't really have much flavor? Is that the issue that's going on? So in my opinion, you certainly can have too much of that. It would really suck, obviously, in the future for one lane to be macro beer, pale lager, and then the other one to be craft beer, pale lager. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it is something to worry about, that if too many craft breweries do it, then we're really cheapening what excitement there is in craft beer. And that's one issue. Granted, you could also play the other side, that maybe this is a way that people gateway into craft beer. And so maybe they start off with the Firestone lager, but then they go into Pivo Pils, and then they go into Union Jack, and then they go into Parabola, and they go into all these fun things that we find in craft beer and so many styles. But it certainly can be an issue, and I certainly see where Sam Calagione is coming from, because that's against his brewing philosophy. So I think it's a really interesting time and argument about what we're doing to craft beer right now, and is something like this, or other breweries are doing too, I don't want to call it Firestone Walker for their lager, but is something like this really damaging craft beer, or is it really helping craft beer and helping the movement? So post in the comments below if you have any input on this. Until next time, guys, cheers. Later.